What are your short and long range goals and how do you expect to achieve them?
Okay, I'll start with my long range goals. My long range goals are to be competent. My long range goals are to have an established network of providers that I love to work with, that we know and trust each other very well. My short range goals are to meet those people early in my career. With those two goals being my goals, just to establish my network and then to have a network that I trust and love. I'm very flexible when it comes to which avenue I'm going to take to begin making that network. So,
Okay, what motivates you?
I love this question. I love this question both professionally and socially. What motivates humans? What motivates them, and what gets them excited about things? I studied it a lot, actually. Like, what is like my central motivation? And I read a psychologist once, Karen Curry, out of Phoenix, Arizona. She said that people are either motivated essentially by their desires or by helping other people fulfill their desires, and humankind is either one or the other. If I were to fall into one of those categories that Karen described, I would embarrassingly have to admit that I am motivated by my desires, not to have other people's desires fulfilled. But that's not a bad thing. It's important to look at both the strengths and the weaknesses of both of those, although I tend to beat myself up a little bit about that.
What does patient-centered care mean to you?
It's an interesting question. What does patient-centered care mean to me? Well, I think patient-centered care has a definition, and it means to me what it's defined. Patient-centered care is treating and it's treating a patient based off of their own set of values and needs and beliefs. It doesn't mean giving them what they want. Essentially, you can't. You have to be responsible, and you have to keep in mind professional ethics. But at least, considering their values and beliefs, and making all of your decisions individualistic to them based off of those beliefs.
How do you interact with families and patients?
I think I'm more human than I am professional, and so I relate with them more on the human level than on the professional level. While I like to maintain my professional persona when I'm around them, I don't want to appear to be lording over them. I don't want to be like, I am the healer and you are the healee, or I am I like to look at it as like a working relationship between the two of us.
Tell me about your greatest achievement and greatest disappointment.
Achievements are something that you've earned, not something that you've been gifted. So keeping that in mind. My education is a good achievement. I'm very proud of my education. I'm very proud of my clinical knowledge that I've acquired over the past 20 years being in nursing. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I think that like my greatest achievement in my world professionally and in my career is in the small things. It's whenever, a patient comes in and They're here because their Apple Watch told them that they're in AFib, but they've never had AFib. In fact, they've had a strong heart rate, and they don't know why this happened. And, in the interview process, I find out that the day before her heart went into AFib, she had a chemo treatment. And so, just being able to put things together, and then the patient go, "Oh, I didn't think about that," that always feels good. And I think those are my greatest small achievements. And also my disappointments. I'm disappointed in myself when I come across a difficult to work with patient and I don't know how to respond the best way possible. I don't know how to respond in a way that could maybe make them feel a little better, maybe make them a little more trusting. And so I'm always disappointed in myself when I do meet those difficult. Is he here? You can do the next question.
Okay. Tell me about the best and worst bosses you've ever had.
Okay, bosses. Bosses are essential for making the ship run. And I've had some great bosses. My first boss, Lisa Wallace, she was amazing. She was a great first boss, and I'm really glad that I have her. I think that great bosses essentially take the information from administration or from CMS, or they take the things that are essential and they absorb it, and then they don't let the stress of that pressure on them fall onto their workers. And I think that the worst bosses are just a voice of the middleman, where they hear the words from CMS, they hear the words from administration, and then they just tell everybody else. They just disseminate the information to all their employees as if it were a robotic task. And I've had both experiences. I can see it, I can see, whether someone's absorbing the stress or if they're, they don't care about their employees. I like to be cared about.
How do you handle stress?
Okay. Stress can be useful, and that's kind of the really cliche interview answer, intellectualizing a situation and trying to be the problem solver. And I think that that's the right answer for an interview, but I also think that that is the most mature way to deal with stress, is to take as much information as you can. If you don't have a whole lot of information, try to get more, and then kind of dissect them each and line them up and knock them down one by one. And take your time. Don't get in a hurry. Triage is a good way of dealing with stress. Picking the most important thing, the most vital thing first, prioritizing that, and work on the rest as it comes.
What are you looking for in this job?
So I've been an RN when I started this, I'd been an RN for 16 years, and I just figured it was time to level up to advanced practice, because I had been practicing a long time, and I figured it was just the right thing to do, and I had the opportunity, and my university was offering a COVID discount, so go ahead and start. So the $38,000 program ended up being something like $29,000 or something like that. So I figured it was a good opportunity to do it, so I just did it. It's been challenging in some ways, and then the time juggle. But what do I want out of it? I just want to keep going. I want to keep going with what I'm learning. I want to keep going, taking care of people, and I want to try different things. I want to try primary care. I want to try specialists. I want to try until I find a really good fit. retire.
What constructive criticism have you received from employers?
There's I worked in a hospital mostly, and whenever there's a fall on the floor, they have meetings where all the parties involved will go to meet with the manager and the charge nurse to discuss what happened. And so, you go over policy, and if all the policy measures were met, then there might be a change in policy, but typically there was a breach in policy, like a bed alarm was left off, or the yellow sign wasn't on the door, or the yellow armband wasn't on the patient. These are all the standards of care for falling in a hospital. And so the constructive criticisms comes in those meetings, where you just kind of figure out how you're going to do better the next time and manage all of the policy requirements.
Why do you want to become an FNP?
It's advanced practice nursing. It's nursing but more advanced. And I figured that was time to do it. I don't have a better answer than it's just time. And the opportunity was there.